Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. Big show planned for you today. Lots of interesting stuff that we're going to get into. A Texas senator has pretty much yesterday was basically let's pick on Texas in the Texas Senate. I guess that's the one way you can look at it. So we will get into that, which, by the way, if you would have, if you're following my blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com, you would have already heard that from this morning. Hilarious. That's pretty much what it boils down to. There was a report made by a radio host in the upstate about Clemson and Florida State possibly leaving the ACC and heading to the SEC. Oh, goodness. It's interesting when something like that happens. Then you have to, someone has to come out and actually say something about it. Yeah, we'll get into that. Also, teams that could crash the college football playoff. I don't know. There's normally a list of teams that could possibly do that, but when you really stop and think about it, it's until we get expansion, I honestly think that we're going to have basically the same type stuff going on here, in my opinion. The stuff with Texas we'll get into in a moment, which is just really funny. I don't even know how to describe it. I just laughed when I read it. I mean, it really, really was funny when I was checking that out this morning. So also conference realignment. I kind of want to start with this. The Big 12 and Pac-12 commissioners are meeting about a possible merger and a scheduling agreement. Now, when you really stop and think about it for just a second, you wonder if a lot of this is going to happen. Could we get to a point where you're going to have teams from the Big 12 and the Pac-12 getting together and saying, you know what the SEC is doing with the now let's make sure we put this out there first. There are a slew of people, especially online, and people that I have an awful lot of respect for. Former football players, former I don't even know what the term I want to use is, but people that I have a lot of respect for as far as what they've done in athletics and sports and everything else. And they're saying a lot of dumb things online. Let's alleviate some of those first. The first is that if Clemson goes to the SEC, they are going to be a failure. That is not going to happen. Just from the program that Dabo Swinney has built up at Clemson. Now, will there if they got put into the SEC West, yes, their schedule would be harder. If they're in the SEC East, I mean, it's basically being in the Atlantic. You have one major team, and then you have a team that's right there with them theoretically, and then it's downhill from there, in my opinion. In the West, yes, it will be much tougher. But I want to put that out there because there are so many people that are pounding their chest about the SEC this and the SEC that. Let's just slow it down for just a second. Okay? If Texas and Oklahoma join the league, let's honestly, Coach Spurrier said it best last week, Texas can't win the Big 12. I mean, that's real. They can't win the Big 12. What are they going to add to the SEC on the football front if we're just talking football? Not much. Really. Now, I know they're all jacked up about Steve Sarkisian being there, and hopefully things will he's beat his demons, and he has the capability of maybe bringing Texas football back to a point of respectability. But as of right now, Texas isn't something that you really want to write home about. Now, as far as Oklahoma goes, yeah, they're pretty good too. They do win the Big 12. But when Oklahoma gets to the playoffs, they don't really fare very well. This is a money deal, is basically what it boils down to. Big TV contracts. So let's make sure that we put that out there. Now, also, the Big 12 and Pac-12 possibly getting together and saying, you know what? Maybe we can come together and have our own super conference. That would be kind of an interesting set there. The commissioner from the Big 12, Commissioner Bowlesby, said if the Big 12's 8 remaining members leave and the league dissolves, Bowlesby implied the matter could be headed to court in regards to the exit fee. So his conference is basically falling apart behind him. So we shall see how that works out. I don't really know what's going to happen on that front. But I kind of put together my own little thing here. And let's just wrap our heads around this for a second. I think that if the SEC truly wanted to be that 20-team conference, I think that they could make that happen. I really do. And I think that if they wanted to, they could go and tell Clemson and Florida State, hey, we'd like to have you in the conference. They could make that move. And I think that they could go after Ohio State and Michigan if they really wanted to do that. I just think that 16 is the magic number. I think that's kind of where they want to stay. Now, the Texas president said that they got with the SEC back in the spring. Is anybody buying that? That they had conversations with the SEC and no one heard about it? Yeah, I'm not buying that very much at all. Not buying that at all. All right, let's I got some comments here from the folks in Texas. Let's start with Texas State Senator Charles Perry to President Jay Hartzell. If you're as big and great as you think you are, you should have moved to the Big 12. You should have made the Big 12 equal or better than the SEC. You didn't do it. Now, this is the funny part about this. The president of Texas is probably going to get to a point where he's at a point where, he doesn't have people breaking him down very often. And he got blistered yesterday. They even dropped a Christmas Vacation reference. The same state senator, Charles Perry, said, quote, I feel bad for the SEC. Cousin Eddie's coming home, and he don't leave until he's wrecked the whole house. Now, that sounds savage in its own right. I think we can agree upon that. But what State Senator Lois Kolkhorst said, the back and forth here with the Texas president is pretty outstanding. Here is the conversation that she had where she basically dressed down the president of Texas, which has the biggest athletics budget in the country. Here's some comments. Check these out.
What's your athletic budget?
It's over $200 million. It's probably 220, 225 in that range.
Where does that put you in the U.S.?
Depending on how you count, probably first.
That's without a winning football team of late.
It's in spite of our football team. We've been winning, just not like we like to win.
3-7 against the Horned Frogs. Maybe your fan base would rather lose to Alabama than TCU. So,
wrap your head around that for a second. Maybe your fans would rather lose to Alabama than TCU. The way that looks, she's implying what a lot of everybody else thinks. Hey, Texas is going to get in the SEC and they're going to ride those coattails. A Longhorn Stadium by October will be nothing but SEC t-shirts and everyone claiming, oh, we're playing in the world's toughest conference. That's why we're 8-4. That's why we're a gong show. Oh, no, we were 8-4. We're 8-4 here too. Maybe you're just 8-4 everywhere you go. That made me laugh really hard. Go and check out all of that at my blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com. It's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. Now, here's something else too. Actually, we'll go to the phones. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, talking about Texas joining the SEC.
Yeah.
I just Texas is not going to be able to run over the SEC commissioners, the presidents. No horns down thing's going to happen for them there.
Right. I kind of agree with you on that. I think that people need to understand that, especially on the football front, the conference is run by Alabama, Georgia. You can make an argument for Auburn and LSU. Everyone else is pretty much, and that's just the way that it is pretty much you come with your hat in your hand. That's basically the way that it is. Get your check and go the hell home. And that's what exactly they're going to tell Texas too. So I would love to hear some of those meetings where we're upset because people are putting the horns down sign. And they will look at them like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Rob, what's your Final Four pick this year?
As far as for the CFP?
Yeah.
I think the winner of the Clemson-Georgia matchup will be in the CFP Final Four. I think the loser is out. So give me the winner of that game, and then I'm going to go probably Ohio State, and I like Iowa State and Alabama.
Alabama.
Yep.
Pretty good picks.
Yeah, I mean, and you can make arguments across the board here, but I may reevaluate those. I'm going to put my stuff on the bookcase of accountability to my right before the season starts, and we'll see if I'm dumb like everybody else. But I'm pretty confident that the winner of the Clemson-Georgia game, that is a knockout game at the beginning of the season. I think whoever loses
Clemson's is out if they lose.
I do. I certainly do.
I think the Big 12, I think Oklahoma, Iowa State, I think they lose 2 games.
We shall see on that front. I mean, it just depends, but I think Ohio State, when you look at Ohio State with their schedule, their schedule's pretty tough. They've got to play Oregon, and I think if they can get through that unscathed, I think they will make it, obviously. But I think that the Clemson schedule this year, they don't play North Carolina. I mean, they may not play, with the exception of maybe NC State, who's probably going to be pretty good this year. I don't think they're going to play anyone that they're not favored by 10 points or more after the Georgia game.
And on the Pac-12 front, what did they have to do to get recognized, I guess you say?
Well, they could start by winning some games. That would be great. Like, if the Pac-12 really wants to step out and for people to, first of all, on the East Coast, we're not going to pay much attention to them simply because we're not awake when a lot of their games are playing. Their night games are going on when a lot of us are going to sleep. So, it's an issue of being able to watch them out there. But as far as the from the national standpoint, the conference games where they go out and they play other teams, if Oregon goes into the horseshoe and they beat Ohio State, that is a statement win there for the Pac-12. They need some wins like that to kind of make themselves more valid on a national front. If you're just saying, hey, we're talking about conference viability here.
Do you think a different TV deal could like help them, like maybe NBC or Fox?
Well, I think
have their games on earlier, because aren't they all run by the ESPN now?
Yeah, no, I think Fox Sports has the Pac-12 games, and they have a lot of their games early. So, I mean, I think you have like 10 or 11 o'clock kickoffs is something they were complaining about last season. So with that, I mean, that's something that you could think about. But, I mean, as far as on the East Coast, it's hard just because of the time difference to catch up on all those games.
Yeah.
So, I watch a lot of Pac-12 football because I'm up late because I'm generally working with our best Gamecock coverage, and I watch those games to wind down so I can go to sleep. So that's why I watch games. But in reality, you're not going to be able to catch a lot of that stuff. It's just too late in the evening.
Yeah, I mean, I DVR a lot of games and then watch them on Sunday a lot of times.
Well, that's doing the Lord's work there, sir.
Hey, with some of these NFL matchups just aren't worth watching.
You're right about that.
And I know you're a Green Bay fan, and Aaron Rodgers gets his new contract, then bad mouths to franchise.
Aaron Rodgers hasn't been right since he got with Danica Patrick. I think I've said that on the air. He started with Danica Patrick and everything went went down the toilet. So he's been terrible ever since. Just saying.
Hey, and what do you think about Chris Paul signing that big deal with Phoenix?
I kind of like it from the standpoint that they're basically paying him for 2 years. I think it's a 4-year deal, but I mean, Father Time gets everybody. He's not going to be a point guard in the NBA at 40. So, yeah. I mean, the next 2 years are the golden years for the Phoenix Suns. If they don't win the championship with Chris Paul at the helm there, then it's kind of back to the drawing board.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us on the rundown. You can call up as well at 803-978-1832. Harry Legg online says legislators can't do the job they were elected to do. Pretend to know crap all about CFB. Thank you for contributing to the show, sir. Let's see here. Randall says Miles Brennan broke his arm fishing yesterday. Yeah, it's just sad for him, man. You know, he started 3 games last year for LSU, put up some points. The offense wasn't the problem for LSU last season. I think that everyone will admit that if they watch the games. I don't think talent on the defensive side of the ball was the problem for LSU. Now, the LSU apologists, they'll tell you, oh, well, they lost this many players and everything else. It's ridiculous. And what I mean by that is the talent that they had, they shouldn't have been 5-5. Coach O would probably tell you that if you'd have to get somebody to do the little bouncing ball thing when he talks. But LSU was a very talented team that went 5-5 last season that probably should have at least won 7 games. At least. But it's sad for Miles Brennan because I thought he was going to be a guy that could be a really big impact player in the SEC. But then things kind of fall apart there just a little bit. All right, so we're going to take a break in a moment here. When we get back, we'll talk about the Clemson FSU rumor and how it's not going to happen. But do you want, if you're in the SEC, do you want Clemson in the SEC? Gamecock fans, do you want Clemson playing in your conference? Under my perspective, I would think the answer would be no. Why would you want them in the conference where they're playing you every year for, and the Palmetto Bowl could essentially be a game that decides who wins the SEC East? Think about that. I don't know. We'll talk about that when we come back. The number to dial is 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call. If you would like to join us here on the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400, Clemson Dave with a great comment there. Clemson's not leaving the ACC. He's right. But the rumors are out there so big that the FSU president had to put something out. Talk about that when we come back. This is the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I completely agree with you. It's just when the president of Florida State has to issue a statement, it's kind of crazy. That's why I'm talking about it. I'm not mentioning the name of the idiot that put the stuff out because he puts out this whole concept of lots of just ridiculousness every day. My goodness. And I don't know, like, look, I'm just going to be honest. I've been covering teams for a long time. I could not dream of putting things out that were just rumors like that and putting my name behind it. My goodness. That would be just insane. But some people just do that, man. It's crazy. Just crazy. I have to drink 4 of these a day. It's ridiculous. Brandon, that would make a lot of sense, sir. That would make a lot of sense, but it's strange when you don't play. I mean, what was it? South Carolina didn't play Alabama for like an 8-year stretch. That's ridiculous. They should play, you should play the West teams every 4 years would be about right. You're right about that too, Clemson Dave. That's a good comment there. You have as many titles in the conference. You're not going to leave. Yeah. Some of the stuff that people put out there, though, is just ridiculous. Hey, I appreciate you guys, man, joining the show today. It's this show is really cool during football season, man, with people calling and, especially, man, after teams lose, the phone calls are just outstanding. Craziness. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Some comments from the folks who are watching online. And, of course, you can join us as well at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Let's see here. Brandon says he'd like to see the SEC go to 4 pods with 4 teams apiece. The South Carolina pod could be South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky. You play them every year and play 2 teams from the other 3 pods every year too. That way you play every SEC team twice in 4 years. Yes, that would make a lot of sense. It would make too much sense, so it's not going to happen. Clemson Dave says, when you've won as many titles in the conference, you're not going to leave. That's why South Carolina should come back. Of course, he's referring to Clemson in the ACC. And let's see here. Randall says Miles Brennan came in and sat behind Joe Burrow and had the injury last year. Now this, you feel bad for the kid. Yeah. That's the anytime somebody gets injured like that, had the abdominal injury, came in, waited his turn, won the job, and make no mistake, he's a pretty good quarterback. And then that just goes away because, you injure your arm. Apparently his arm got broken. Maybe out 7 to 12 weeks. We shall see. He's out, 12 weeks. That'll put him in about, week 6, 7, or 8, something like that. My math's right. So the question now is who's going to be the quarterback for LSU? We'll find out. Coach O's got some work to do on that front. All right, so yesterday there was a rumor that was put out there that Clemson and Florida State would possibly be in the mix to go to the SEC. It got so big on the world of Twitter that Florida State President John Thrasher had to issue a statement saying, quote, "I want to be clear that persistent reports that Florida State has been in contact with the Southeastern Conference are untrue. We've had no communication with the SEC or representatives of the SEC." So the interesting thing about that is people take things they see online and then they just pretty much run with it. But I wanted to put this out there today at 803-978-1832. If you are a South Carolina fan, do you want Clemson in the SEC? We haven't really talked about that. A friend of the program, Tim Frisbee, who is a former Gamecock wide receiver, tweeted out something yesterday that normally Tim says things that are very bright. He's one of my partners on the Fifth Quarter Postgame Show, where we discuss every Gamecock game every season. But he says, yes, because I'd like Clemson to play a tougher schedule like South Carolina plays. Tim. I know that you played in the SEC. I know that. But the reality is that it's not about the conference records, man. Clemson does pretty good against the SEC. Just saying. You take the SEC East, for goodness sake. With an SEC East schedule, you think Clemson's not going to be competitive in the SEC? Come on now. I know that you wore the garnet and black. Take those glasses off for just a second, my friend. We'll get Tim on the show here before long. It's going to be get him in the mix. He's passionate about it too. He's one of those folks that I talk about the SEC apologist. Tim is like light years ahead on that. Everything is the SEC East. The SEC is awesome. No other conference is worth anything. Go away. If another team from another conference wins a title, that doesn't matter. That Tim is that far in. It's kind of funny. Anyway, back to it though. If you are a South Carolina fan, do you want Clemson in the SEC? Do you want Florida State? Or would you rather the conference expand out of the South a little bit more, meaning, hey, they've got Texas and Oklahoma on that side. Why not go to the Big Ten and possibly get, say, an Ohio State or a team like that? That would be interesting, right? 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Don't forget, Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is the czar of Clemson Sports. He'll be with you at 4 o'clock today. But you can join us here on the program now. Do you want Clemson in the SEC if you are South Carolina? 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Clemson Dave Online says, over the past several years, we've beaten many SEC teams, lost a few, but one more. So to think Clemson would lose, yeah, okay, right. Yeah, I just think that, first of all, winning any conference and going undefeated is not easy, regardless of what conference you play in. But, I mean, there is a slew of folks on my Twitter timeline, which you can follow me at Rob Sounds Good, that are like, Clemson would go 8-4 in the SEC. Are you serious? Let's slow down for a second. Let's not get upset with the team from the upstate, because they've kind of had South Carolina's number for a bit. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. You know, and what do you think that Texas brings to the league? Are they a team? Which team would actually win, has the capability to win? I think winning the conference is tough, but let's say getting to the SEC championship game first. Just saying. Will it be Texas or Oklahoma? Kobe Online says, I like how Clemson and UGA have been scheduling games for the past decade against each other. Yeah, I think that's great too. I think those two teams should play each other every year. You know, in my opinion, it's closer to Athens from Clemson than it is to Columbia. 803-978-1832. Rob Online, his name is Rob, so he should be good here. What he's saying is if Clemson had to play every game in the SEC, it would be much difficult than the ACC. Not that Clemson can't win, but getting banged around in every game is different. I completely disagree, sir. There are, two teams in the SEC East that have talent that is at kind of a next level type of thing. I mean, you think that Mizzou and I don't know. I think Mizzou and Vanderbilt and those teams are going to push Clemson around. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that at all, man. But thanks for joining the show there, Rob. Jimmy says Clemson would absolutely contend in the SEC East this year. The question is, What would they rather do? Dominate an ACC schedule and compete for a national title, or slug it out in the SEC? Yeah, that's a very valid point there too. Good stuff there from Jimmy. Colby says Texas brings memes to the SEC. That is all. Good stuff there, buddy. All right, quick break and we come back. We'll have more for you here on the rundown. If you're a Gamecock fan, do you want Clemson in the SEC? Taking your calls when we come back, 803-978-1832. This is the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. And Rob, I respect what you're saying, bud, but the reality is that if you're in the East, you don't play Alabama every year. I mean, I just don't understand that. I don't understand. Oh, they would get beat up with an SEC schedule. Okay. You play Georgia and Florida in the East. If you're in the West, you've got what? Alabama, LSU, Auburn, and Texas A&M. Clemson schedules Auburn and Texas A&M off and on anyway. To think they wouldn't compete is just silly. Or wouldn't do well is just silly. I think it's harder to win the East, or win the West. Absolutely harder to win the West. Jimmy, I'm going to highlight yours. That's great, Jimmy. Highlight post of the day there for Jimmy. Yeah, there we go. Texas brings hurt feelings and candy asses. Very good, sir. Very good. Will candy ass get me canceled? That might get me in trouble. Better not say that on the radio in a minute. Candy ass might get me canceled. Angie with another good point. Brings Bevo. Isn't it kind of funny? You go to a Texas game and everything is with Bevo and everything else. Yeah, but then you get steak. It's just kind of weird. That's up for debate, Rob. People forget that Clemson won by 4 touchdowns over Alabama, too. Not very many SEC schools can say that. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call. If you're a Gamecock fan, do you want Clemson in the SEC? Folks are sounding off online. Rob says you have 2 West draws every year. For the most part, even the worst teams in the East generally play the best in the SEC strong most of the time. That's a fair point, sir. Chloe says, I hope Notre Dame, Cincinnati, West Virginia, and UCF join the ACC. I don't know what Cincinnati brings to the mix. I'm just saying. I don't get what they bring. I can buy Notre Dame. I can buy West Virginia. UCF is what, one of the biggest as far as enrollment in the country. So from the money standpoint, that would probably make sense. Brian says, just because they play the ACC schedule doesn't mean they're not a powerhouse. That's a valid point there as well. Miyagi Fang Karate says, why do people think the ACC doesn't have solid linemen? The SEC isn't the only ones with 300-pound dudes. Either way, a hit by a football player is a hit no matter what. That's a good point, too. And Clemson Dave says, not many SEC schools can say they've beaten Alabama in the Saban years. That's a valid point, too. Remember, 3-5 is what Gus Malzahn did in 8 games against Alabama, and that got him fired. That's one of my favorite stats. I beat the best coach in the country 3 out of 8 games, and you're going to fire me. You're going to give me $20 million to go to UCF. Have you seen Gus Malzahn lately? I caught a picture of him at it was something that was online. He's down there in Florida, all tanned up, knowing he can go like 8-4, 9-3 his first couple seasons, still collect his $20 million and live in the wonderful state of Florida. Gus Malzahn made out like a bandit, man. Absolute bandit. And Randall says they replaced him with a coach nobody ever heard of. Yeah, well, we've talked about this before too online and with several different folks, that the Brian Harsin thing is already off to a weird set for me, because if I'm hiring him at Auburn, I'm thinking, why don't you bring your coordinators and everything else? We're going to try to, bring that Mountain West excellence down here to Auburn, see if it works. If you're going to have that kind of experience, but that's what I would want. But now let's just get a bunch of SEC retreads. Let's get South Carolina's offensive coordinator and with their defensive line coach. Let's get him to leave in the middle of the night and come down here. That's what we're going to do. 803-978-1832. Colby says about Cincinnati. They've been better than South Carolina in the past 5 years, though, but it's not a 5-year thing. I mean, what else do they bring? When you look at a lot of these schools, and I know we're just thinking football, but with Oklahoma and Texas, you look at the other sports too. I mean, baseball, it's going to be huge for the SEC. Basketball, not so much. I mean, the Longhorns are, generally a tournament team. Oklahoma needs some work. Clemson Dave with a good point online. The problem with SEC teams, they all judge themselves against Alabama. Clemson judges themselves against themselves. Angie said, did I just compliment Boise State? Have you checked your temperature? They had excellence up there in Boise State, playing on the blue turf, getting jacked up for matchups with Wyoming and San Diego State. They're confident they're doing their thing up there. 803-978-1832. Randall with a comment. Are the Dolphins going to move on from Tua Tagovailoa after this season? Who knows? They say the NFL is a not-for-long league. I kind of believe that. You want to know the perfect thing with that? And I thought about this the other day. Todd Gurley is 27 years old, and he is an afterthought. 2 seasons ago, we were talking about Todd Gurley is the best running back in the history of time. And he was great, doing all kind of stuff. But you take those hits in the NFL, and then it can really get you. It can really, really get you. 803-978-1832. So, of course, Florida State president issues that statement saying, yeah, we've had no communication with the SEC or any representatives of the SEC. There's that. Your thoughts on that at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. We're going to talk about teams that could crash the college football playoff. We'll have that for you when we come back. I want to play this one more time just because it makes me laugh. This is Texas Senator Lois Kolkhorst speaking to Texas President Jay Hartzell. This is her comments to the president of the University of Texas. Check this out.
What's your athletic budget?
It's over $200 million. It's probably 220, 225 in that range.
Where does that put you in the U.S.?
Depending on how you count, probably first.
And that's without a winning football team of late.
It's in spite of our football team. We've been winning, just not like we like to win.
3-7 against the Horned Frogs. Maybe your fan base would rather lose to Alabama than TCU. So,
but you hear that, the Texas fans are like, oof. And the best part is that if you watch the clip, which you can watch online at foxsportsradio1400.com, it's right there on the front page there. The best part is that you have the president of the university that has the biggest athletics budget in the country. And he just has to stand there as this woman tells him, yeah, you were 3-7 against TCU, and maybe your fans want to lose to Alabama more than TCU. And he couldn't do anything about it. They were calling him Cousin Eddie, for goodness sakes. What was the state senator Charles Perry said, I feel bad for the SEC. Cousin Eddie is coming home, and he don't leave until he's wrecked the whole house. I hate to break this to you there, Senator Perry. You have probably have been used to Texas trying to run things, and in the SEC, the only thing they're going to run is their mouth, and they'll be politely told to shut the hell up. You go sit over there with Vanderbilt and Mizzou and Texas A&M. Get your revenue check and shut up. That's what the people in the ones that wear the smoking jackets with the SEC logo down in Birmingham will tell him. Just saying. I'd love to sit in on those meetings when they have the big, conference, the AD meetings or whatever, and Texas comes in with the list of things that they want, and the folks from Auburn and Alabama are like, you can take your butt back to the Big 12. We don't need your nonsense. Get out. You came to us, remember? Your president came to us in the spring. Remember that? Just saying. I think that's how the world would shake out in those meetings. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Also, podcast for the show will be up at about 5 o'clock today, so be sure to check that out. 803-978-1832 if you'd like to get involved with the show. Lawton Swan's up when I'm done here at 4 o'clock. It says Clemson Sports on the marquee, but everyone listens to Clemson Sports Talk because Clemson Sports Talk has Lawton Swan. There you go. Lawton gets it done. All right, quick break. When we come back, final segment of the show is upon us. Fox Sports Radio 1400.com. Yeah, Braden Galloway is outstanding. They, as far as the tight ends go there, we'll see how that works out for them. I think that Galloway may end up being, and I'm not saying, let's make sure that I put this into perspective. What I mean by that is that Galloway may end up being the guy that's going to be the release valve, sort of like ETN was. Wouldn't surprise me if there were a lot of tight end flats run by Clemson this year. Or, hey, Galloway, make sure you are always looking for the quick flip or whatever, where to keep teams from blitzing so much in the running gaps. I think that's going to happen a lot as far as the tight ends go for Clemson. So, and for South Carolina, I think that Nick Muse is going to be their leading receiver. They don't have another receiver that's, in my opinion, worthy of even really talking about down there. Just saying. That's from right now. You may have somebody come on and be crazy, crazy good. We shall see. We shall see. Did you guys see the Panthers player, JT eBay, the former South Carolina safety that had a brutal hit this morning? So brutal, they cut him. It was such a dirty play, they cut him. Ugh. The Badgers might be all right, David. Look, nothing will make me happier than if Wisconsin shut up Ohio State, man. They think that they invented football up there. It's insane. It really is. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Final segment of the show. Let's see here. David says I shouldn't sleep on the Badgers from Wisconsin. Yeah, I mean, you know, I have to check and see how their schedule cracks out. I didn't check that out, so I will do a better job of looking at the Wisconsin schedule for when I do my Big Ten picks later on. Anyway, 803-978-1832, the big question we have today. If you're a South Carolina fan, do you want Clemson in the SEC? Do you want Florida State? Do you want them there? And don't call me with they won't do well there. Do you want them in your conference or not? The crazy thing is that, remember, it's like, I think the conference needs, 11 of the 14 to make moves or whatever to bring new teams in. I wonder if South Carolina would vote against it. Sort of like Texas A&M did, or allegedly was supposed to do. I don't think they want anything to do with Texas. Anyway, teams that could crash the college football playoff. This is from 247 Sports. I thought this was interesting. They mentioned the first one is North Carolina. So North Carolina, of course, they welcome back all but one starter defensively. They don't have to play Clemson, and they've got the ACC Player of the Year in Sam Howell. So that's interesting in its own right. Another team they think could crash the set here is Iowa State. So the hype for Ohio State this year is pretty impressive, especially considering they are, they were a New Year's Six team last year. And could Texas A&M be in the mix as a team that could crash the CFP? And I know it all comes down to that Alabama game. Now, if I'm looking at it from if I didn't know that it was Nick Saban in Alabama, if you told me they had two players that finished in the top 5, top 6, whatever, in the Heisman Trophy race, they lost both of those guys and a slew of others and their offensive coordinator. If you didn't tell me it was Alabama, I would say, yeah, that team's probably going to dip a little bit. And with that, Texas A&M comes in, and it seems like they have all the necessary ingredients to get there, except for we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Simple as that. Now, they spend so much money there, it makes you wonder, with the money that they've spent on the coaching staff there with Jimbo Fisher, if he doesn't get over the hump this year, is what Randall's saying online true? He'll be looking for a new job after this season. Just saying. Might be right. Might be right about that. One of the other teams on this list is the Oregon Ducks. Their season, in my opinion, hinges on what happens with the Ohio State game. If they go into that Ohio State game and they win that game at the Horseshoe there, I think that'll propel them to a point where they could be right there in the mix to be in the Final Four. They've got Kayvon Thibodeau on defense, and he's a great player. So maybe that's into the mix there. But the way they crash is winning over Ohio State. And then they've got LSU in the mix here. I don't know. I think, Max Johnson will probably be the starter for them. But LSU returns 20 starters from last season. So they've got 2 potential first-round picks at the cornerback spot. I mean, no one should theoretically be throwing on LSU. You would think that, but then you watch last season, and they had one of the worst pass defenses in the country, or definitely in the conference. And you look at the talent that's there, and you're like, man, what is the deal here? Now, of course, most folks will tell you it's Bo Pelini's fault, and that's fine. That's completely fine. But with all of that talent, they could be a team that has the capability to crash the college football playoff. So there you go. There's the mix there. Cincinnati is another team. They have to play Notre Dame. They win that Notre Dame game, they could be punching their ticket. I'm so jacked that the football season's almost here, man. It's going to be just a great, great season. All the fans back in the stands. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Be cool stuff. All right, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to join us here for the final couple minutes of the rundown, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Appreciate the folks that have been downloading the podcast, by the way. You can listen whenever you want. And that is on iTunes, however you want to get it. Brian says, I'm tired of hearing 1980 and I'm a Gator fan. Georgia probably my second or third favorite, though. Yeah, well, Georgia always seems to have the talent, you know? And when you look at their roster, other than Alabama, I mean, they've got one of the most talented rosters in the country. So when it comes back down to it, the idea is this, in my opinion. You have to look at it from this perspective. If they have all this talent, why haven't they gotten over the hump yet? Now, I know people are going to say, well, they have to play in the SEC. Be more creative than that. What I mean by that is that other teams from the SEC with lesser talent have. Remember, Gus Malzahn at Auburn won 3 out of 8 games against Alabama. He didn't have the talent Alabama had. LSU won a national title. They beat Alabama on the field, heads up on the field, and then won the national title. So it is possible to win with less talent. What does that finally come back to? Is it the coaching? Maybe. Colby Online says, we finally have a QB. Okay. You had QBs before. I mean, Justin Fields was pretty good. I mean, first round pick in the draft. Just saying. We shall see. They're one of the more interesting teams, though, because I don't think Kirby Smart's going anywhere. But if they have a 9-3 season with a loss to Clemson, which is, you know, in their mind, Clemson doesn't belong on the field with them. That's kind of how the fan base feels anyway. Certain parts of it. They drop that game and then lose 2 SEC games. Man, it's going to be interesting to see what folks' opinion of Kirby Smart. All right, tomorrow on the program, working on getting a couple of guests. We will keep you up to date on that. I'll announce them on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. So be sure to follow us there. Oh, I had one other thing I wanted to put out there. The WWE released Ric Flair. How do you release Ric Flair? My goodness. Ric Flair should have a contract until he dies. I mean, you're paying a lot more people a lot less money than the ambassador Ric Flair can bring you into your company. Ridiculous. Get it right, Vince McMahon. The heck is wrong with you? Anyway, can't believe they let Ric Flair go. Are you serious? Let Ric Flair go? My goodness. Oh, goodness. That kind of broke my heart. All right, remember, Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is the czar of Clemson Sports. Be sure to follow him at Clemson Sports.
Stop looking at me, Swan!
Yeah, he's up next. Right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I'm not reaching that far, man. I'm serious. I'm not reaching that far. Who knows what's going to happen? We shall see. Hey, I appreciate you guys. We'll be back at it tomorrow. You guys are awesome, man. We'll talk to you later on.